Welcome to Other African Literature. I'm gladly to share with you the literature of the Northeast, East, and West countries in Africa. First is Senegal. Officially, the Republic of Senegal is a country in West Africa. On April 4, 1960, is the National Day of Senegal and celebrates their independence from 300 years colonization of France. Senegalese literature is written or literary work, novels, poetry, plays, and films which has been produced by writers born in the West African state. Senegalese literary works are mostly written in French, the language of the colonial administration. However, there are many instances of works being written in Arabic and the native languages of Wolof, Pular, Mandinka, Diola, Soninke, and Serer. Senegalese novelists of this post-colonial period include Cheikh Hamidou Kane, Boubacar Boris Diop, and Ousmane Sembene. Poets include former Senegalese president and philosopher Léopold Sédar Senghor, Birago Diop, Cheikh Aliou Ndao, and Alioune Badara Beye. Female writers also contributed greatly to the body of Senegalese works, have all written notable pieces regarding issues of polygamy, feminism, and the realities of Senegalese youth. Here is the example of famous literary piece written by former Senegalese president Léopold Sédar Senghor entitled Princess tos vos chorus frappes les balafons, or in English, Everyone strum your chorus, strike the balafons, known also as Le Lion Rouge, or in English, The Red Lion. It was adopted as the national anthem at the year 1960 after their independence. The kora is a type of harp and balafon is a wooden xylophone, are Senegalese musical instruments. Post-colonial Senegalese work often includes emphasis on national literature, a contemporary form of writing which stressed the engagement between language, national identity, and literature. Egypt, a country linking Northeast Africa with the Middle East, dates to the time of the pharaohs. Its official language is Modern Standard Arabic. Egyptian literature traces its beginnings to ancient Egypt and is some of the earliest known literature. Indeed, the Egyptians were the first culture to develop literature as we know it today, that is, the book. Most Egyptian authors write in classical Arabic, a few write in the vernacular. They are Bayram al-Tunisi and Ahmed Fuad Nem wrote in Egyptian Arabic, Kairim, whereas Abdel Rahman el-Abnudi wrote in Saidi Arabic or Upper Egyptian. One of the famous literary pieces in Egypt is The Tale of Sinuhe of 1295 to 1186 BCE that is written in Middle Egyptian and might be the classic of Egyptian literature. The story of Sinuhe refers to a man who fled his duties in Egypt and became a Bedouin in an Asiatic tribe. Bedouin is the nomadic people of the Middle Eastern deserts. Sinuhe was an assistant to King Amenemhat I, who was the first king of the 12th dynasty in Egypt, 1991 to 1962 BCE. The tale begins with the death of Amenemhat, and the news travels to his son Senusret I, who is fighting to the east. Word of his death reaches the son and Sinuhe. Sinuhe panics and is scared to return home as he is unaware of how the king died. He then flees to the east to go into exile. The king Senusret I forgave Sinuhe for fleeing his post and gave him the opportunity to become a part of the Egyptian elite. Sinuhe lives out his life in Egypt and is buried in a tomb for the elite class. The story provides insight into remarkable Egyptian poetry and the views of the afterlife. Free will and determinism are the themes, and whether human beings are the agents of their own actions. Although this text celebrates the strength of divine power and intervention, it maintains that humans have free will and therefore are accountable for their actions. While most literature in ancient Egypt was so-called wisdom literature, that is literature meant for instruction rather than entertainment, there also existed myths, stories, and biographies solely for entertainment purposes. The autobiography has been called the oldest form of Egyptian literature. Benin, officially the Republic of Benin, formerly known as Dahomey, is a country in West Africa, part of which became known as the Slave Coast. The official language of Benin is French, with several indigenous languages such as Fon, Bariba, Yoruba, and Dendi also being commonly spoken. Literature in Benin had a strong oral tradition long before French became the dominant language. The first novel published by an author from Benin, that of L'Esclave, or The Slave, by Felix Cotchereau. It was published in 1929. 10 years later, the author Paul Hazumé published an historical novel entitled The Gomichi. Like the majority of authors of their generation from Benin, Cotchereau and Hazumé scarcely criticized the beneficial effects of the French occupation. The novel L'Esclave is a passionate story of an inheritance dispute between a domestic slave named Mawulawo and his brother Komlangan. Cotchereau's character of the slave, the relationship between the slave and the members of the family who bought him, and the social and economic milieu in which the story unfolds present a contextual backdrop for Chamba. They are enslaved people of the South. Veneration, referring directly to a domestic slave's presumed origins, ethnicity, and ancestry. The novel's title is a misnomer. Mawulawo is an indisputably bought person, but not as a slave, since the father treated him as a child and Komlangan viewed him as his brother. Komlangan's father purchased 8-year-old Mawulawo from far away northern region of Okuwo. The slave's adorable face pleased his master so that he could not bring himself to disfigure it with the scarification of slaves. He named him Mawulawo, which means God will provide. Nothing distinguished him from Komlangan, with whom he grew up. They shared their games and worked together as brothers. The boys grew into men and took wives. At his deathbed, the father blessed his 2 sons, preaching to them his mutual affection. They closed his eyes for him. This point in the novel sets into motion the brothers' fight over their inheritance. Komlangan, the birth son, claims that Mawulawo, the slave, has no rights, to their father's estate. Thus, Mawulawo's revenge begins and instigates multiple events that elicit love, jealousy, hate, and ambition, and that ultimately lead to multiple murders. Nigeria, officially the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is a sovereign country in West Africa. The official language of Nigeria is English. It was chosen to facilitate the cultural and linguistic unity of the country. Nigerian literature is the literature of Nigeria, which is written by Nigerians, for Nigerians, and addresses Nigerian issues. It is written in English, Igbo, Yoruba, Yoruba, Hausa, and other languages of the country. Nigerian literature deals with the themes of colonialism, liberation, nationalism, tradition, displacement, and ruthlessness. Nigerian literature is known throughout the world, since Wole Soyinka, who won the 1986 Nobel Prize for Literature, was the first Black African to receive the award. Another Nigerian writer with a worldwide audience is Chinua Achebe. He has often been called the father of Nigerian literature. He was awarded the Man Booker International Prize in recognition of his entire career as a novelist and author in 2007. His first novel, Things Fall Apart of 1958, is an intimate account of the clash between African native traditions of the Igbo people in southeastern Nigeria and European colonization. The bulk of the novel takes place in Umuofia, a cluster of 9 villages on the lower Niger. Umuofia is a powerful clan, skilled in war, and with a great population with proud traditions and advanced social institutions. Okonkwo has risen from nothing to a high position. Through hard work, he has become a great man among his people. Everything that the tribe's laws and oracle commanded, Okonkwo follows them obediently. One night, at a funeral for one of the great men of the clan, Okonkwo's gun explodes, killing a boy. In accordance with Umuofia's law, Okonkwo and his family must be exiled for 7 years. Okonkwo bears the exile bitterly. Central to his beliefs is faith that a man masters his own destiny. But the accident and exile are proof that at times man cannot control his own fate. He flees with his family to Mbanto, his mother's homeland. Okonkwo returns to Umuofia to find the clan sadly changed. The church has won some converts, some of whom are fanatical and disrespectful of clan custom. Worse, the white man's government has come to Umuofia. The clan is no longer free to judge its own. A district commissioner judges, backed by armed power. Okonkwo wants war. During the meeting, court messengers come to order the men to break up their gathering. Enraged, Okonkwo kills the court messenger. The other court messengers escape, and because the other people of his clan did not seize them, Okonkwo knows that his people will not choose war. Embittered and grieving for the destruction of his people's independence and fearing the humiliation of dying under white law, Okonkwo returns home. Things fall apart for him, and it is not the society he envisioned, and then he hangs himself. Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart is a pre-colonial novel that ends with the tragic consequences of Africa's encounter with Europe. The novel was praised for its intelligent and realistic treatment of tribal beliefs and of psychological disintegration, coincident with social unraveling. Kenya, officially the Republic of Kenya, is a country in Eastern Africa, and its two official languages are English and Swahili. Kenyan popular literature has concerned itself with a whole range of themes including urbanization, unemployment, prostitution, love, marriage, crime and violence, the neglect of the rural population by the ruling elite, the corruption of political leaders, and the relationship between Europe and Africa. One of the best-known Kenyan literary work is Ngugi wa Thiong'o's Whip-Not Child in 1964, under the name James Ngugi. It was the first novel in English to be published by an East African. The book begins with Njoroge speaking with his birth mother, Nyakagi, about going to school. He is the first one of his family able to go to school. They live on Jacobo's land, Jacobo being an African who deals with the white settlers in order to make his fortune. Among those settlers is Mr. Hollands, who owns much of the land in the area. Njoroge has two brothers, Kamau and Boro. Kamau is apprenticed to a carpenter. Boro was forced to fight in World War II and suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Njoroge's father, Ngoto, farms on Mr. Holland's lands. He is a man who prizes the land and its care above money. One day, black workers call for a strike to obtain higher wages. During the strike, Jacobo was called by a white inspector to end the strike. Ngoto attacks Jacobo that ends with riot, where two people got killed. Jacobo swears revenge to Ngoto, while Ngoto loses his job and forces his family to move. Njoroge's brothers fund his education so that he can go to school. Mwihaki, Jacobo's daughter and Njoroge's best friend, enters a girls-only boarding school, leaving Njoroge alone. He reflects upon her leaving and realizes that he was embarrassed by his father's action towards Jacobo. Jacobo accuses Ngoto of leading the Mau Mau movement and hopes that the whole family will be imprisoned. He and Mwihaki encounter one another again, and this time, Njoroge does not find their father's differences to be a hurdle in their friendship. One day, Jacobo is found murdered. Njoroge is pulled out of school by Mr. Hollands and questioned, and both he and his father Ngoto are beaten nearly to death before being released. Their father dies from his injuries, and Njoroge learns that his father was only protecting Kamau and Boro, the real leader of Mau Mau. When Kamau is imprisoned, Njoroge must provide for both of his mothers. He is forced to abandon both school and his faith. Njoroge has fallen in love with Mwihaki and confesses his love to her. Asking her to live with him, she refuses because she does not want to leave Kenya. That's when Njoroge attempts to hang himself. However, he fails when his mothers find him. The novel closes with Njoroge feeling hopeless and ashamed of cowardice. Whip-Not Child shows the negative aspects of colonial rule over Kenya and how the oppression affects the individual. As a child, Njoroge has a hopeful future. His father is successful and he excels at school. Then, His family and those around him become involved, willingly or not, in the Mau Mau uprising, the harsh actions of the British Army, and those who benefit from their rule tear apart George's family and strip him of his faith in God and will to live. Madagascar. Officially the Republic of Madagascar, and previously known as the Malagasy Republic, is an island country in the Indian Ocean, approximately 400 kilometers off the coast of East Africa. Malagasy and French are both official languages of the state. The literature of Madagascar encompasses the oral and written literary arts of the Malagasy people. One of the island's foremost artistic tradition is its oratory, as expressed in the forms of hainteni, kabari, and ohabolana. Hainteni, or knowledge of words, is a traditional form of Malagasy oral literature and poetry. Involving heavy use of metaphor, it is associated primarily with the Merina people of Madagascar. Ohabolana, which constitute no less than concise expressions of the Malagasy philosophical worldview. The largest published collection includes over 6,500 of them, relating to all aspects of life, and particularly the human condition. Kabari is a very poetic discourse full of imagery which calls upon imagination. It is very structured and mainly contains proverbs, rhetorical figures, and wordplays. One of the famous Madagascar literary artists is Jean-Joseph Rabbeinu. He is widely considered to be Africa's first modern poet. Rabbeinu, a largely self-educated man who earned his living as a proofreader for the Imerena printing press, wrote 7 volumes of poetry before his tragic death. Presque Songes, or Nearly Dreams of 1934, and Traduit de la Nuit, or Translation of the Night of 1935, are considered to be the most important collection on his poems. What is happening beneath the earth at the remote nadir? Lean over a fountain, near a river, or over a spring. There you will see the moon fallen into a hole, and there you will see yourself, luminous and silent, among the trees without roots, and where the mute birds alight. Translation of the Night is more remote and impersonal, retaining a Baudelarian sense of form like Nearly Dreams, but exhibiting a more mature, individual style. It is also Jean-Joseph Rabbeinu-Villot's swan song masterpiece, meaning it is his final work just before his death. The mythical world Rabbeinu-Villot creates in his poetry is an intensely personal one dominated by visions of death, catastrophe, and alienation, which are all mitigated only occasionally by hope of salvation and resurrection. The overall impression is one of a surrealistic otherworld in which natural objects such as birds, trees, stars, cows, and fish have human emotions, and human figures seem cosmic or semi-divine. It is thought that disappointment at being unable to visit the France whose poets he so long admired, coupled with melancholy temperament and drug addiction, were the cause of Rabbeinu-Villot's suicide in 1937. African literature is not important only because of its relevant setting and relatable storylines. It also increases our social consciousness and raises awareness of social, political, and economic crisis that the African continent is facing. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Thanks for watching!